unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time.
Did you guys see the war on X last night over H-1B visas and immigration? Got pretty nuts. I learned a lot. You know, some weird things happened. There were disagreements. Laura Loomer was at the middle of it again. Elon Musk was at the middle of it again. Vivek Ramaswamy. Anyway, the basic crux of it is, if you haven't been following it, is that Elon Musk wants to increase the number of H-1B visas, and Vivek does too, or at least change it so they can get the brains, this is their position, the brains that they need in order to compete with the world, to have the top technology. Their position is, if America wants the best, then America needs to take the best from all the other countries. Rational position, you know? But people freaked out. We don't want any more immigration. None, no more. These people are the H-1B visas are being used. They're not for that. They're being used for other things. They're being used to get wage slaves from overseas, to force the market to pay less, you know? And they go, oh, okay. Anyway, I found myself in the argument last night going, oh, that's a good point. Oh, that's a good point, on both sides. Like, really good points on both sides. But it really escalated. It got racial, you know. We don't need any more brown people pooping on our streets, you know. You white people don't know anything. You're not breeding. And these are all, actually, even the burns were legit on both sides, you know. But it got nuts. And then Laura Loomer was really criticizing Elon Musk, and suddenly she lost her blue check mark and all of her subscribers, like in retaliation. And that's pretty crazy. You know, Elon Musk, champion of free speech, starts punishing people who criticize him. By the way, something I would totally do. If I owned X and people were calling me names and hurting my feelings, I would probably ban them. Because I would want to say, this is my place, right? I own this. So, yeah, I don't need to put up with this. I don't. So, yeah, people, it's weird how, again, entitled people feel. And I don't understand where they get this entitlement from. I'm using your platform. I guess here's the entitlement that I see. But it's not an entitlement. It's an agreement. If you advertise your place as free speech, and then you don't, well, then you've just broken an agreement. I don't care whether it's in your terms of service. I don't care. I don't give a shit. What you say overrides any fine print. Fine print is immoral to begin with. So if you say this is a free speech platform, and then you do things that say otherwise, then you deserve to be criticized, possibly sued, certainly called out to be a hypocrite. That's totally fair. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, it's still his. It's still his. If I invite you to my Christmas party and say, everyone will be happy and festive and nobody will talk about politics or religion, and then you come to my Christmas party, there's a good chance I'm going to start talking about politics and religion, no matter what I promised, because I'm a human and I've got problems and I can't avoid things. So no matter what I promised, I might try to adhere to that, but I'm going to make mistakes. I'm still going to be human. Now you could sit there and go, listen, you promise and blah, 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 and therefore I'm not ever leaving your home. Nah, that's not how it works. It's still my house, even if I misled you to come to it. It's still mine, right? So there's that aspect to it, too. Now, if somebody sued me and said, look, I came all the way, I could have gone to some other Christmas party, um, you know, I spent all this on gas, you misled me. And you could build a case, there you go. That's probably fair, right? So I don't know. We'll see if Loomer follows up on that stuff. And by the way, there were these other ex-employees. This one guy who kind of was at the center of it all. Can't remember his name. Something like Cash, another Cash, an Indian-ish name. He's from Canada, but he was saying some of the most trolly things, the really roasting the white people, and getting people really upset. Anyway, take a look at it. Cernovich had his things. By the way, these are another thing I learned last night is that Elon is like, well, if you get blocked by a bunch of heavy accounts, you're going to become more and more invisible, And I was like, oh, okay, that's great because everybody blocks me. And basically what he's saying is the more popular somebody is, the more you should consider not criticizing them, But those are exactly the people that should be criticized, right? The more popular somebody is, the more influential somebody is, the more they should take the barbs. That seems to be, it should go without saying, but he seems to be going in the direction of, no, if somebody's popular, that means that they deserve to be popular. And if you get blocked by popular people, you're fucked. And I'm like, okay, well, I've been fucked anyway. I'm blocked by everybody. Jordan Peterson, Cernovich, Milo, James Lindsay, Dave Reboy, almost every Gad Sad, almost every heavy hitter on the right has blocked me, So anyway, there's that. But here's my take on immigration. I totally get the argument when people are saying, Cernovich has really pointed out, this is what's so good about X right now. Even if Elon has some bad days like what he had yesterday, where he really seemed to step in it and doesn't seem to be able to explain to the people his position well enough. I understand it. His position and Vivek's position seems to be that only the top 0.001% of the people, that's what they're looking for. We need the very best talent from around the world. That's ballsy. It's also rude to the rest of the world to say, hey, we want your best off your team. His analogy is as an NBA team, you want the very best talent so America can win. That's rational, right? But everybody else is saying that's not what's happening with H1B. HN1B? Anyway. H18? What the fuck? I'm forgetting what it's called now. The visa program. That Trump has been saying for a long time needs to go or be reformed dramatically, to give American workers a shot. Well, Cernovich did a good job. He just said, look, you can look at the you can look at the visa program and look at how many they're given. And he started putting screenshots up, and you could see that the people that were arguing that that's not how it's being used. They're saying it's being used to bring in slave labor or to drive wages down. It's an economic thing. It's not about a talent or merit thing. It's about an economic thing. And of course, the research that he did and the screenshots he posted seem to support that, that they are using it for that. Plumbers, you can't find an American plumber? You really need to get a plumber from India or Russia or something? Is that where you need the top 0.001%? Anyway, you see all these people telling stories about how I'm a white guy and I can't get ahead and I went to Yale and Harvard and blah, blah, blah. Nobody wants to hire me because they only want to hire Indian people. And there's a million sob stories. And then in the comments, it's like, you're just not talented. You're whining. You're just like DEI, blah, blah, blah. Basically, lots of great arguments on both sides. It's really pretty. If you like a good debate with smart people, there is definitely one happening on X right now with a lot of really smart people. And let me tell you something. There was this one post by one of the guys that says, unless you've met one of these people, one of these math geniuses that just is in that 0.001%, you don't know what it's like. And I thought, I can kind of see that, But I have met some of those people. And to be frank, I'm not all that impressed. I mean, I am. It is super intimidating to meet somebody who has a set of talents that are so far out of your sphere. And math and that programming stuff, that is, if you want to make me feel dumb, I get in a room with those people or in a Twitter thread with those people and I just think, oh shit, these people are talking a language I don't even understand. And they're, it really makes you feel dumb, for sure. And maybe I'm just coping, but I also go, but your fashion sense isn't very good, and you don't know how to dance. You're not very charming. You're raising the ire of an entire racial group against you. You've made yourself a target. Your social skills suck. If you walk into a room, nobody gives a shit. Are you really that smart? This gets back to my whole IQ is bullshit argument. Or it's not bullshit, but it's like, it ain't everything. It's only part of what is intelligent about a person. Your ability to sway opinion, dance, athletics, all that stuff, that's all also part of the intelligence, natural intelligence. A plant just sitting there has its own intelligence, its ability to grow in a harsh environment. That's intelligence. Can it do a math problem? Can it, no. But just, there are other things besides IQ. That's one of the things that is so interesting about this argument is you're like, okay, we need this person and that person and this person and that person. Great, okay, but there's a lot more that you need. Some of the arguments are, one of the arguments against the person was like, you're saying, one of the things that sparked so much of the controversy was somebody said, America would not exist without Indians, which is obviously stupid because, of course, it did exist. And somebody brought that up and said, look, you're coming here, and this is a country that was set up on the founding documents and everything that was, the groundwork was laid by a bunch of white Europeans. So maybe shut the fuck up. And anyway, so I thought about this, reading about it. Oh, man, if you just go down the rabbit hole and the nerds start talking about, you think they're talking about how the right can't agree. They call it the paleo right and the tech right or whatever. The paleo right are the nationalists, the blood and soil. And then the tech right are people just purely thinking of, programming and AI and all that shit. But one of them mentioned, he said, if you think that they're going to disagree now, wait until we start talking about engineered embryos and synthetic wombs. Oh, that unleashed the whole thing. And it's true, man. There's, and the anger and the rage. And I was looking at these people commenting on both sides, and they both sides seem to be just turning up the heat, turning up the heat, turning up the heat, you know, for some sort of racial war or whatever. And, I've been what I call a radical individualist my whole life. So I'm really all about merit. If somebody's got a good idea or a good thing, I just think, well, what can you do? That's a better idea. That's smarter. But what I was thinking last night, and where all of these people seem to be falling short, because what happens in these debates is people just admittedly get really cocky and insulting. And when you do that, when you get racial or whatever, you're going to piss off a lot of people. If you say, black people are blah, X, Y, Z, white people are X, Y, Z, Indian people are X, Y, Z, you're just picking a fight with an entire group of people who obviously all don't fit whatever descriptor you put in there. They obviously all don't fit that. So you're wrapping a bunch of, all Jewish people are this way, talking about genetic components, not theological or philosophical, All people who were born with this DNA are XYZ. And all people that are born with this one are XYZ, positive or negative, And I just kept thinking, pride goeth before the fall. Pride goeth before the fall. All these people completely positive about what the future is going to be like, how things need to go. And the more certain they were, the more people doubled down in the comments and, turning up the heat. And I just kept thinking, man, humility is something people need to find. I mean, I want to say humility ultimately finds you, because you will be humbled. Pride goeth before the fall. You will be humbled somehow, If you get too big for your britches, nature will figure out how to humble you. It's just going to happen, You're going to get a lump in your butthole or something. You're going to start pissing blood. Somebody you love is going to betray you. Friends that you had that you valued are going to stop answering your phone calls. You're going to slip and fall, literally, So when anybody thinks, I've got it all made, I've got all the answers, it's you're just setting yourself up to be kicked in the teeth, so to speak. So yeah, I'm an immigrant. I immigrated. At 16 days old, I was like, I'm out of here, Canada. I'm going to the United States. And I did. I moved to the United States when I was 16 days old. Obviously, my parents are the ones that did that. I didn't do it on my own, but it's more fun to think of a bearded infant driving a station wagon over the border and flipping the bird to Canada. So I'm an immigrant. I became naturalized when my dad became naturalized when I was a kid. I think I was 16 when he became a U.S. citizen. So I automatically rolled over into U.S. citizenship because of that. And I have dual citizenship now. But when it comes down to all that stuff, even though the arguments are really good on both sides, I do have to come down on the side of merit. Always. Merit. If somebody's really good at something, if somebody can make a good case for something, and they're willing to work hard and they add, to the bottom line, then yeah, let them in. But here's the problem with that, too. When somebody makes a category and say, this person's in the top 0.001% of this category, aka top talent for programming, coding, you name it, math type stuff. I sound smart, don't I? For math type stuff, Anyway, it's like that person is somehow the top 0.001% of humans, but that's not true. I keep saying for San Francisco and the tech industry in total, including all the stuff that happened, with Twitter and banning and censoring people, the tech industry, and how they've gone so hard left. I keep saying Revenge of the Nerds isn't the cute story that it was in the movie. It's dark, and that's talking about that small class of people, that 0.001% of IQ or math brains, autistic brains. Somebody last night in the thing called them, psychopaths. That autistic people, a lot of them lack empathy and, the ability to communicate with people. And, kind of does fit psychopathic. So when you get that brand of intelligence working on things that might be derived in resentment or might take on a resentful, what would you call it? When the pigeons come home to roost and they're full of resentment, when somebody gets that power, the nerds, you can't assume that it's going to be good. In fact, we've seen the track record is bad. So when they say, we need to get the top 1% of this class, and I'm going, but maybe that class is the most evil class. Maybe that's not the best class, right? Maybe we don't want the smartest, or I have a theory that your IQ score is actually maybe your propensity to be evil. Because like even in an IQ test, I don't know if you've ever taken one, but a lot of puzzles, a lot of tricky thinking, a lot of loopholes, weird. People that have IQs are really good at steering around things, finding loopholes, tricking people, puzzles. A puzzle in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you use it to make people feel dumb, or if you have a talent to do it and somebody else doesn't, anyway, power can be used for good or evil, right? And I think the IQ version, that just the simply thinking, it steers around the physical things, athleticism, dance, art, singing, all the stuff we really experience, that really sort of gives somebody a value in a room, swagger, charisma. The IQ portion is almost like a way to steer around and subvert the rest of nature. That's the way I kind of see it. I don't hear anybody else really talking about that. And every time I do talk about it, I usually get people staring at me with blank faces like, how could you ever say that IQ might be bad? Well, I just laid it out for you. If you have an ability to deceive others because you're smart, you always hear people saying, oh, he's a smart guy. And a lot of times they're describing somebody who's evil, who's legitimately, oh, that guy was a smart guy. He robbed all those banks and, blah, blah, blah. Oftentimes people use smart, as a compliment when really they're describing somebody who is not doing many good things for society. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's worth considering and going, do we want to recruit, if my premises has any weight, do we want to recruit and bring to America the top 0.001% of evil geniuses? I don't know. You know, do we want to fuck up the ratio? You know, go back to school. You know, I used to think I was picked on or whatever. I used to think of myself as smart when I was young. Not totally, but kind of, you know. I'm a dumb fuck. There's no doubt about that. But oftentimes the people that call me a dumb fuck are dumber than I am. You know what I mean? So, but I think of the way I behaved as a kid, and I think of the people I didn't like and how maybe I felt picked on, and I just resented them and I didn't like them for all those years. I didn't resent that I had to trick my way into their good graces with humor and talent, you know, artistic talent or whatever. I kind of resented that I had to do that to just, you know, keep the heat off of me, keep them from bullying me or whatever. I had to win them over. But at the same time, now that I'm an old man, I can look back and go, they were probably right about some of those things. You know, my weird dressing, the way I would dress like a new waver. I mean, I was essentially saying, whenever you do that stuff, whenever you say, I'm not fitting in here, I'm going to do something different. In your own view, you're saying, oh, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. People got to be free to be authentic, be you, you know, as if hairdos and funny shoes and pants are authentic, you know. They're not really. They're a costume, you know. But so when you do that amongst somebody and you automatically decide to stand out and declare yourself, I'm not one of you, there's this implied insult, right? And so there's a one way to insult people to their face, and then there's one way of just by simply making it very obvious that you don't want to have anything to do with them culturally or anything. There's an implication there, you know. I wouldn't have seen it that way as a youngster, but now that I'm older, I can see it. I go, oh yeah, I was doing that. A lot of times we don't know why we're doing something, especially when we're young, you know. Even if we say we have our best intentions, sometimes it's not clear until we're older that what we thought were good intentions actually weren't even good intentions. That's a total mind fuck. You know, when you discover, wait, I was saying they were good intentions, and I convinced myself they were good intentions, but under a microscope, they probably weren't that good anyway. Yeah, so, you know, merit. What does that mean? Best basketball player? Best programmer? Best sniper? Best dancer? Best singer? These are all good things. But what about the nicest person, the kindest person? I sound like a hippie right here. What about a person who promotes the best values? You know? That seems to be missing from the conversation. You know, and if there was a way where you could test people on their morals, you know, that should be part of the thing. You know, if you want to sign somebody up for your band or your team or your company, and you got to spend a lot of time with them, and they're going to have influence and they're going to have power and they're going to be able to vote and sway, don't you want somebody that's actually a good person that has the same values as you? Or let's just say good values, because maybe you don't have good values. I'm not going to assume that you do. You might have shitty values. I sometimes have shitty values. Some of my values are good. Some of them are bad. I have the potential for good or evil. So do you. So that really should be part of the discussion. And it seems like anytime you want to bring that up, it gets, all hell breaks loose again because, some people just want to deny that there is objective good or evil. And I don't know what you do with those people because, again, a lot of these people, very smart, linguistically, high IQs, they can make good arguments against objective good. It's all relative, man. It's totally subjective. One man's trash, another man's treasure. One man's sin is another man's virtue. You can get really wrapped up into that and swayed by it, especially if you're operating in IQ land. IQ land is in the brain. It's in the inner. It doesn't even require you to really do that much. It's not lifting things, It's not dancing. It's not singing. It's strategy, devising a plan. And it's hard to meet an honest strategist. Those two things kind of are in conflict with each other, aren't they? Strategy versus honesty. Strategy versus reality. Anyway, I'm once again meandering and on a tangent. But yeah, it's an interesting debate. And I can't say I know exactly where I fall on it. My instinct tells me that you want the best and the brightest, but when I say best, they got to be good too. They got to be good people. And how do you test for that? Well, a couple of suggestions for me. If you're bringing over a person on a visa program and you need them in their thing, if you need the nation, the country, to agree that this person is required, I think the country should be able to say, well, we need to know that that person is not going to subvert our values or our system, that they are going to be friends with us. So I would be kind of like in the camp of saying, well, fuck the visas. If there's somebody that you need that you can't find here, then you need to make a case of why that person should be here permanently and to join our team, not to come and spy for the other country, to add value to our system. You need to make a case for why and maybe there should be a test, Do you uphold all these principles in our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, you name it, But we need to decide if they're good people. And it's a fair thing to ask things like, okay, guy coming over, genius, math genius, how do you feel about engineering embryos and growing them in artificial wombs? Oh, I think that's great. Okay, well, maybe we don't want to have you here. It's even fair to say, hey, genius guy, richest guy in the world, how do you feel about Earth? Well, actually, I really am focused on Mars. Okay, well, maybe the rest of us don't share that. Maybe the rest of us say, we're not going to go to Mars. It's okay. Because, he's here. He came on one of these visas. It's fair to have your morals questioned. And when people don't want their morals questioned, if they get really defensive about the whole conversation of morals, that should be a red flag in my opinion. And this is the opinion machine. If people don't want to discuss morals and morality, I'm not so sure you're dealing with somebody that cares about good morals. And if they don't care about good morals, then the smarter they are, maybe the worse they are for you. Like the worst thing you want in your neighborhood is a really, really smart person, air quotes, with bad morals, you know? So that's kind of the angle that I see missing from this whole topic on X, because I guess I get some people, here's the problem is like, when you want to discuss morals, some people just immediately go, oh, you're talking about religion. And I'm like, okay, kinda. But then that topic devolves into which religion is true. It's really hard to have a conversation about morals that doesn't devolve into Christianity versus this versus that versus whatever. And of course, maybe it should. Maybe it's unavoidable. But I wish people could just have the conversation a little bit more broadly. Like, what is beauty? What is healthy? What promotes life? What promotes happiness? What promotes peace? Objectively good things. Peace isn't objectively good. Okay, whatever. Yeah, that's what merit. The problem with the conversation about merit is that it doesn't include moral merit, and it should. It should. It should be okay to not want a bad guy on your basketball team, even if he's really good. That probably is something we're missing, If you only go by merit, it's almost like you recruit some really bad people with a lot of talent to promote bad things. It's like, no matter what your talent is, if you're using it for evil, that's bad. You don't want the best singer in the world singing terrible songs. You don't want the most charismatic person in the world convincing people to do terrible things. You don't want the most fashionable person to do that. And you don't want the best programmer in the world working on a terrible project that is not good for the rest of us. So that's what really needs to happen. That's where the conversation, I think, needs to focus. Are the people you're bringing in to your world, to your country, to your home, to your neighborhood, are they good people? And how do you determine? What is the test to decide if somebody's good or not? Anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thanks for listening.